Hello, I'm Marsha Chan, and I'm here to talk to you about real conditionals. So we're looking at Chapter 13 of Grammar Sense 4, Section B, Form, Meaning, and Use 1. Let's think critically about meaning and use. Let's read each sentence and the statements that follow it, and then check the correct statements. Number 1, if I take bus number 3, I get to work early. So if I examine this carefully, I'm looking at the verbs, right? If I take, present tense, I get, present tense. What did I learn in this last one in part A? I learned that if there's present tense in the if clause and present tense in the main clause, what does that tell me? Is this a general statement about a habitual activity, or is this a specific statement about the present moment? Ta-da! It's a general statement about a habitual activity. We use simple present tense in English to denote something that happens regularly. Okay, number 2. If you like fiction, you might like this story. Here we have an example of present tense in the if clause, if you like fiction, and then we have a modal, you might like this story. I'm not sure, it's possible. So, is it I'm certain that you'll like it, or I'm not certain that you'll like it? Well, I can't be certain because I use might like it. So, the correct answer is I'm not certain that you will like it. You will like it is a positive certain thing. So, I'm not certain that you'll like it. You'll possibly like it. It's possible that you'll like it. You might like it. You may like it. You could like it. That's a possibility. So it's a future possible conditional. Why? Because you haven't read this story yet. I'm kind of like suggesting it to you because I think it's possible that you will like it. You might like it, but I can't be sure. I'm not certain. Number 3, they'll cancel the meeting if it snows. Now, it doesn't start with the if clause. It starts with the main clause, the independent clause. They'll cancel. That's future. Will cancel. If it snows, that's the dependent or conditional if clause. And here we use the present tense. We use the present tense there? Yes, we do. Well, what does that show us? Does it show us I'm certain about the result? Or the result is just a possibility? Well, which one is the result? The first part, they'll cancel the meeting, or the second part, if it snows? The result is in the main clause. They'll cancel the meeting. So am I certain about it? Or is it just a possibility? It's just a possibility. Why? Because it depends on the weather. If it snows, they'll cancel the meeting. They won't cancel the meeting if it doesn't snow. Okay, let's look at number 4. Whenever Joe had an appointment, he marked it on his calendar. So we have had, simple past, marked, simple past. We don't have if in this case. We have whenever. Does this mean this is about one moment in the past, or this is about a habitual past actions? Well, this is a giveaway. This tells you it happens more than once. Every time that Joe had an appointment, he marked it on his calendar. But instead of every time, we use whenever. Whenever Joe had an appointment, he marked it down on his calendar. Shows that this is a habitual past action. All right? Okay, now let's go over some details about real conditionals. Of course, you have your online practice that you must complete as well. Now, in the if clause, we have if he takes the train, and then in the main or the result clause we have he gets to work by 9 o'clock. If he takes the train, he gets to work by 9 o'clock. That's present tense. And that means it's habitual. It's always true. If it's snowing tomorrow, they'll probably cancel the game. They'll cancel. They'll probably cancel. That's a future. So that's a future possible, and it's real. If the weather was nice, why didn't you go to the park? Past tense. So if the weather was nice, not were. Was. Was means it actually happened. Were means it didn't happen, it was hypothetical. So there's a difference between was and were in the if clause. If the weather was truly nice, why didn't you go to the park? Past, real, conditional. So, real conditional sentences are used to talk about possible situations and the results. Conditional sentences have an if clause, which is the dependent clause, and a main clause, which is the independent clause. Remember, independent clauses can be taken away from the rest of them and made a simple sentence by itself, right? The if clause introduces a condition or event, and the main clause expresses a result of the condition. If clauses are dependent clauses. Yeah, I said that already, right? They cannot stand alone. They have to be attached to something else, an independent clause. All if clauses contain a subject and a verb. The if clause usually comes first, and it is followed by a comma. Notice the commas here. Commas after the end of the if clause. Then is usually omitted, but it is always implied. Now, in mathematics, you always use if blah, 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 then blah, blah, blah. That's mathematics. But in English, you always use the if, but you don't have to use the then. The then is usually not used. It's very rarely used. It's only used when the if clause is really, really long, and you might forget the condition in the if clause. Otherwise, we don't even say the word then, or we don't write it, but we mean then. It means that the next part is the result. Okay, when the main clause comes first, there's no comma, and of course, the word then is not used. So we could say, he gets to work by 9 o'clock if he takes the train. Notice, no then, of course, you can't have a then at the beginning. And no comma, because the first clause is independent. When the first clause is independent, do not use a comma. Use a comma only if the first clause is dependent, as in the examples above. If we wrote capital T, they'll probably cancel the game if it's snowing tomorrow, period. No capital here with that. Then notice we don't have a comma when the main clause or the result clause or the independent clause, when that one comes first. All right, let's take a look at some other things. Present, real conditionals, timeless, if or when, plus a present tense. Maybe we use then, and it's optional. Then we use a present tense. Then we also have if or when, plus a present tense. Optional then, plus a future tense. Let's take a look at some examples. If or whenever or when he takes the train, he gets to work by 9 o'clock. If he takes the train, he gets to work by 9 o'clock. When he takes the train, he gets to work by 9 o'clock. Whenever he takes the train, he gets to work by 9 o'clock. All of that uses the same grammar. Now, of course, if you use if, when, and whenever, then the meaning changes slightly, but the grammar is the same. If means maybe he takes the train and maybe he doesn't. Maybe he drives his car on the other days, or maybe he gets a ride from somebody. When he takes the train means on those occasions. Whenever he takes the train means every time he takes the train. Okay? So the grammar is the same when you're talking about present habitual action. If, when, or whenever the sky is cloudy, you can't see the moon clearly. Is the main clause. Sorry, is the verb in the dependent clause. Can't see is the modal used in the main clause. So if the sky is cloudy, you can't see the moon clearly. Oh, that makes sense. That's condition. When the sky is cloudy, you can't see the moon clearly. That means at that time. Whenever the sky is cloudy, you can't see the moon clearly. That means every time the sky is cloudy, you can't see the moon clearly. Same grammar, no matter which of these subordinators is used. The third example shows if or when I'm working really hard, I sometimes lose track time. So I am working. Am working is the present continuous, so that emphasizes the progressive or continuous action. And then we have the verb lose in the phrase to lose track of the time. That means you get so involved, absorbed by your task that you don't realize that time has passed. So this is another example of using a kind of present in the if or when clause and present in the main clause. Like simple present sentences, present conditional sentences can express general, timeless statements and habitual activities. They indicate that something always happens as a result of a certain condition. Both clauses often use simple present verb forms. The if clause can also use continuous or progressive forms. The main clause may also use can or can't for ability. Main clauses may include adverbs of frequency, such as sometimes or usually, to qualify the statement, although only certain adverbs can occur in the same sentence as whenever. So whenever you use whenever you use whatever, you could use the adverb always or usually, but it would be contradictory to use any other adverb of frequently, any other adverb of frequency. Since these sentences are timeless, that means they are not stuck in the past, present, or future, the words when and whenever can be used in place of if with no change in meaning. Well, I kind of disagree with that because there's a little bit of change in meaning. However, the grammar is the same, and overall, it's about the same. Timeless conditionals can also use will in the main clause. So you can say if or when or whenever the sky is cloudy, you won't see the moon clearly. So you could use a future will not or negative form won't in the contraction form instead of the modal can't. Now let's look at present real conditionals possibilities. If plus the present. Optional then plus the present. If he doesn't like to cook, he probably buys a lot of takeout. Doesn't like, simple present. Buys, simple present. Probably is a qualifying adverb to modify buys. If he enjoys skiing, present tense, he might like snowboarding too. Might like, that's a modal, which can indicate present time, general time, or future. If the cost of housing is decreasing progressively, why can't we find an affordable apartment? Can't find is something that's going on right now. We're looking, but we can't find. If she hasn't done anything wrong, present perfect, not until now. She hasn't done anything wrong. She shouldn't have anything to worry about. Shouldn't have. Modal plus main verb have. If she hasn't done anything wrong, she shouldn't have anything to worry about. Present conditional sentences can also express possible events. Not certain ones, but possible ones. Events and situations and their results. The if clause suggests a possible condition, and the main clause suggests a possible result. Unlike timeless conditionals, these sentences do not express something that always happens. Conditional sentences that express possible events use a much greater variety of verb forms, including present perfect, continuous, and modal verb forms. Modals of possibility, could, might, may, should, must, are often used in the main clause to show different levels of certainty. Adverbs such as maybe, probably, and definitely may also be used. Since these sentences are not timeless, don't use when, don't use whenever. These words cannot be used in place of if. So when and whenever can only be used in place of if when it's talking about a general truth or timeless situation. If they're not timeless, if they're not general truth situations, just use if. Now let's look at future real conditionals, where we use if plus the present tense and optional then, and then future in the main clause. Let's talk about predictions about future activities or states. If it's snowing tomorrow, even though it says tomorrow, take note of the verb. It is snowing. It's a present progressive. They'll probably cancel the game. That one is where we put the future. Pay attention to this. Not all languages do it the same way. So we have the future in the result clause, but we have a kind of present. Here it's a present continuous. We have that in the if clause. If she's not here yet, she must not be coming. If she's not here yet, here's the negative. She must not be coming. I guess she's probably not coming. So that's a prediction. She's not coming, meaning she's decided not to come, or she's not able to get transportation, or she changed her mind, something like that. Now let's talk about planned future activities. If I have time, I'm probably going to visit some friends in Turkey next year. If I have time. Notice the use of the simple present tense in the if clause, even though it refers to a future time. If I have time, I'm probably going to visit. Going to visit. So I'm going to visit is future. That's where we put the future in the main or independent result clause. I'm probably going to visit some friends in Turkey next year. I might take a dance class if I can find a friend to go with me. All right, so I might take, here's our modal. This is our main clause. I might take a dance class. I haven't decided yet. What does it depend on? If I can find a friend to go with me, because I don't want to go alone. It'll be more fun if I go with somebody else. So I need to find a friend. If I can find a friend, I might take a dance class. So future conditional sentences express possible future results of present or future conditions. The if clause usually presents a present form. The main clause uses a future form, including modals of possibility, could, might, may, should, and must, to show different levels of certainty. So these modals may indicate the present or they may indicate the future. Advice, requests, and commands. If plus the present tense, optional then, plus present or future. Oh, so this is different. Why? Because we're doing something different. We're asking for advice. We're making requests, or we're giving commands. Let's look at these examples. If you're having constant headaches, you've got to see a doctor. This is some advice. If you're having, so here we're using present continuous. You are having. You've got to see. Have got to see. You have to see. You must see a doctor. So this is advice. If you have time, could you help me decorate for the party tomorrow? This is a request. If you have time. I don't know if you have time or not. Even though have time is talking about future, we use a simple present tense in the if clause. Could you help me? So this is a normal way to request help. You could say the sentence without the if clause and say, could you help me decorate for the party tomorrow? You don't even have to put the if, but you do it because you want to allow the person a way out. If you're finished with your test, pass it to the front of the room. Pass it. Okay, that's a command. So notice it doesn't have a subject. When you make a command, when you use the imperative, the subject you is understood but not spoken or written. If you're finished with your test. All right, to be finished with something. So here's the simple present are, if you are finished with your test. Social modals for advice and requests and imperatives are also used after present if clauses, expressing present and future meaning. Now let's take a look at some mixed time real conditionals. That's when we mix up the time of the verb in the if clause and the result clause. So let's look at if plus past, optional then, plus the present future. The past affects the present. If he didn't smile at you, he probably doesn't remember you. If he didn't smile at you, he probably doesn't remember you. That's probably the reason. So what we understand from here is, in fact, he didn't smile at you. So I guess he doesn't remember you. So we can use a simple past in the if clause and the simple present in the main clause, because the past action affects the present action. Now let's look at the past affects future. If he injured his ankle, he won't be playing in the game on Friday. If he injured his ankle, he won't be playing. So let's say, oh, is Paul going to be playing in the game on Friday? I don't think so. You know about his injury, don't you? Well, I think if he injured his ankle, he did in fact injure his ankle, he won't be playing in the game on Friday. So you can see that it's possible to use a past tense in the if clause, and the future tense won't be playing future conditional, future continuous, future progressive in the result clause. It's possible to use the past here and the future here because the past affects the future. So sometimes real conditional sentences do not follow the regular patterns that we saw on the previous slides. Instead, past time may be mixed with present or future time. Alternatives to if. Well, as long as I'm not interrupted, I'll finish most of the work by the end of the day. So that doesn't use the word if. You could say, if I'm not interrupted, I'll finish most of the work by the end of the day. As long as means this is my only reason, this is the only way that I can finish. Now, if this is indicating or implying that I want to get everything finished and you want to know when I'm going to finish, well, it all depends on how much work I can do without being impeded or interrupted. Now the next one, unless I can find a friend to go with me, I won't take that dance class. So unless is like if, but it's negative. So it means not, if not. So if I cannot find a friend to go with me, I won't take that dance class. All right, so that's an alternative to saying if I cannot find, unless I can find. Now, the next one is even if. Even if it's snowing tomorrow, they won't cancel the game. So that one shows it's something kind of surprising. You think that, on a bad day like snow, they will cancel the game, but they are hardcore. They are determined to play the game. Nothing's going to stop them, not even snow. So even if it's snowing tomorrow, they won't cancel the game. So these are the other expressions that can be used to introduce real conditionals. As long as, only if, and providing, or provided that, which is a little bit more formal, emphasize a single condition that will cause a result. unless emphasizes a single negative condition that will cause a result. It means if, blah, 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 not. Even if and whether or not mean that the condition doesn't matter. The result will always be the same. And the clause is offset by commas, whether it's placed at the beginning or at the end of the sentence. So that's the only case where we put a comma after this one. Okay, so we could say, they won't cancel the game, comma, even if it's snowing tomorrow. So this case, even if or whether or not, these are showing a strong contrast to what is expected, and therefore that clause is set off by commas. So here's the example. They won't cancel the game, comma, even if it's snowing tomorrow. These expressions occur most often when will or won't are in the main clause. One clause is usually negative, and one clause is usually affirmative. When only if begins a sentence, the subject and auxiliary in the main clause are inverted. So pay attention to the word order here. Auxiliary plus subject plus verb. Only if I'm not interrupted will I finish the work. So this is a bit formal. It requires that you invert the subject and the auxiliary. Kind of like a question, you know what I mean? Because usually you say, will I finish? Here you're saying, only if I'm not interrupted will I finish the work. So when you use only if, because it is such a strong emphasizer. Another way to emphasize the condition is to do the inversion in the main clause. All right, let's look now at past real conditionals. If plus the past, optional then, plus the past tense in the result clause. Here are some timeless past conditionals. If or when the plane left New York at 5:30, it usually arrived in Prague at 7:30 a.m. Past in the if plus, past in the main clause. This shows habitual action in the past. If or when the sky was clear, he was able to see for miles. When the sky was clear, he was able to see for miles. That is talking about someone in the past, about past habitual actions. There were many clear days, and those days he was able to see for many, many, many miles. So that's showing past habitual action. If or when she was having a bad day, she used to turn off the phone and take a bath. She was having a bad day is not a state like she had a bad day. She had a baby, she had a car. Not possession, but to have a bad day means to endure, to suffer a bad day. So this one is used in the progressive or the continuous tense, just like other action verbs. If she was having a bad day, what would she do? She would turn off the phone. She used to turn off the phone. She would take a bath. She used to take a bath. So those show past habitual action. Those are timeless. So these are examples of timeless, past, real conditions. These actually happened in the past. Now let's look at the ones that are not timeless. If the weather was nice, why didn't you go to the park? So that means if the weather was nice last Saturday, why didn't you go to the park? Everybody else went. That was an event or an instance in the past. If he was acting strangely, something might have been bothering him. So you thought he was acting out of the ordinary? You described him as being, well, doing some things that you thought were unusual for his normal behavior. I say if he was acting strangely, according to what you said, something might have been bothering him. So was acting is the past continuous. Might have been bothering him is the past modal. Both of these are continuous. Something might have been bothering. Might have been bothering is maybe something was bothering him. Something was bothering him. That's certain. Something might have been bothering him. That's a possibility. So past conditional sentences can express timeless situations in the past, as shown here, or possible not timeless situations in the past, shown here. Both clauses use past forms. Past real conditional sentences are not used as often as the other types of conditional sentences. All right, that's the end.